So today we are going to be working on creating a color wheel. It is a little bit more complex than here we have a simple color wheel, but we are also going to make a lighter version of each color, also known as a tint, and we will be dulling each color, which is another word for that is lowering the intensity of it. All right, so for starters, there's a lot of things to get to set up for this project. You'll want white scrap paper for testing out your colors, palette knife, paintbrush, cup of water. You will want a palette paper for mixing your colors, which will be like a, oops, I'm missing that. Let me grab that, which is over here. It's almost like a finger painting paper, so it's a little bit shiny on the one side, and it's non-absorbent, so your paint can be mixed on the surface of it without it absorbing into the paper. Cup of water we already have. All right, and you'll get a sheet of paper that looks like this, and this is not to be confused with a color wheel. This says how to set up your palette, and it really is literally just going to show you how to set up your paint in this palette, which you'll be storing your paint in this palette. So you should also have a lid for the palette, something like this, okay? Some people find it easier to take a Sharpie and write directly onto this palette, which is fine. So I wrote where each color is going to go. There's a couple things you might not recognize in here. So we have warm and cool colors. And if you don't know what that means, we take a look at our color wheel here. The warm colors are the colors you can think of. I think of sunshine and also a fire. So the yellow, orange, and red are going to be our warm colors, and they imagine warmth can go with those colors, with the sunshine and the fire. And then our cool colors, if you think of ice, blue, purple, and green are going to be our cool colors. So when you're getting your colors, you'll notice that there's two reds. We have a warm red, and we have a cool red. Now the warm red is more orangey, so it's closer to the other warm colors. The cool red is going to be closer to our violet. So we're actually going to use the cool red for making violet, and we'll use the warm red for making orange. So it does make intuitive sense if you think through it. The color that's more similar, you'll use it to make that color. So this is more orangey, so I use it to make orange. And then we also have two blues. So with blues, we have cool and a warm blue. So our warm blue here is going to be closer to violet, closer to red, okay? And our cool blue is the one that we're going to use to make our green, okay? So with these paint pumps, one other quick thing to note, oftentimes paint gets stuck in them. If the paint is not coming out easily, use your fingers and you can kind of pick off. There's usually a little dry bit there. There's also paper clips you can use to stick in there to get the dry bit out. Don't press harder. If you press harder, what will happen is the paint will explode everywhere. It's not so much fun. It makes a big mess. Okay, so setting up the palette, I'm going to start, and I already wrote on here what's going to go where. I'm going to start with warm red here. I don't want to overfill the palette because I am going to need to put the lid on top. Now, when I'm making colors, it's hard to know. You might be wondering, how do you know how much different colors to put in? So a good rule of thumb is you're generally going to need more of your lighter color. So if I'm making orange and I need yellow and red, which it tells you how to make each of these colors on your how to set up a palette sheet, I'm going to need primarily yellow because it's lighter. So I'm going to do 2 squirts of yellow and 1 squirt of my warm red. Then I need my pure yellow. Green, once again, I'm going to go for my lighter color first. So I'm going to use more yellow and then 1 squirt of cool blue. Then cool blue here. Get my warm blue next. Now violet is a bit of an exception to, it's not necessarily, these are the two colors you need to use, and you're actually going to need surprisingly much more blue. It's just because we have a poor quality blue paint. I don't think this would always be the case. So I'm going to need 2 blues and 1 red. Then I need my cool red and white. All right, so I've got that. The next thing you would want to do is mix up these colors, and you can just use your paintbrush to do that, just to kind of check and make sure the colors look okay. So I'm gonna just get my clean brush, always dry it on the paper towel. They're not watercolors, they do not require extra water in them. So I'll go ahead and mix one of these in and just see how it looks. That looks like a pretty good orange to me. If you did think it was too dark, this is on the darker side. If I thought it was too dark, I could take my palette knife, scoop out part of it, and then replace it with yellow. I'm not gonna just add yellow on top, it's gonna overflow. So I can also test this color on my scrap paper, because sometimes you can't tell what the color is when it's in a pile like that, but when I test it, I get a better sense of the color.
Angie Spear to the main office, please. Angie Spear to the main office.
Okay, so I already have a palette that's fully mixed, so we're gonna just switch to using that. And if you have all your supplies out already, and we have your palette ready to go, then you're ready to start painting on your color wheel. So this is the color wheel, and it's already labeled, so it tells you exactly where things need to go. You will notice the first outer ring is going to be similar to a traditional color wheel. So we have our primaries, yellow, red, and blue. And then we have our secondary colors, which are the colors in between the primaries. So halfway between red, this is our red, this is our red. Halfway between red and yellow, we have orange. Halfway between yellow and blue, we have green. And so you already have made all your primaries and your secondary colors. You're gonna need to make the tertiaries on here. So I'll just demonstrate a few of these. I'm not gonna do it all. The end product will look like this, okay? So I'm gonna start, I like to work in sections, sort of do, pick 2 primaries and then do everything in between them, because then I'm working all with the same set of colors. So I will start with yellow and blue, okay? So I've got my yellow, and the way I like to work is to use the palette knife to scoop out the paint rather than the brush. The benefit of this is it's easier. You don't need to wash the palette knife. I can just wipe the palette knife. And then I will need cool blue, I'll put over here. And that's gonna be all the colors I need to make this whole section from yellow to blue. So once again, washing the brush and then drying it off on my paper towel. I'm gonna paint my yellow. The paints are a little bit see-through, so you'll see the words right through it, not a problem. I also, before I wash the brush off, I like to wipe the excess paint off. It'll keep you from having to change your water quite as frequently. I've got my blue down here. You already have a green made, so I can use this green that I have made directly from here. All right, and then halfway between yellow and green, I'm gonna need yellow green, and halfway between green and blue, I'll need blue green. So I'm gonna work right here. So I'm taking a little bit of my yellow. I actually have some green on my brush. I'm just gonna twist that around, mix that around in there. It still looks pretty yellowy to me, so I'm gonna add, I can either add green or a tiny bit of blue. It's the same will get me the same result. All right. So that looks pretty good to me, but I'm going to test it on my scrap paper and then hold it in between here to see, does it look like it is between yellow and green? And to me, yes, it does. So I'm going to go ahead and paint that. Now for the blue-green, I'm going to need more blue, obviously. So blue, mix in a little bit of yellow. I'm looking to make sort of a turquoise color, something that is between blue and green. All right, I'm going to test that. I would say to me this still looks pretty green, so I'm going to add some more blue. All right, that looks pretty good to me. That looks like it's between a blue and a green, so I'm going to paint that there. All right, so you're going to continue like this around the whole wheel. So maybe next I would do yellow and red and all the orange and yellow orange and red orange that go in between. And then I can do blue and red and the various violet and violet related colors. The next ring is going to be, you're going to make a lighter version of each color, which is also known as a tint. So to do that, you actually want to start with, I'm going to grab some white, and I'll go ahead and make a light version of these ones that I did so far. I'm going to start with white and add the color to it. You're going to find if you start with the color, you have to add a ton of white to make any difference. So I'm taking a little bit of white from my pile, and I'll go ahead and do this blue-green by adding a little bit of blue-green to my white. And then I can go ahead and paint that right here. Do one more. So to do my yellow, once again, starting with white, adding a little bit of yellow, and then I have my light yellow. Okay, so you would go around until you've done each of the colors that way. The last ring is probably the trickiest. For the last ring, you're going to be dulling your colors. And to dull a color, what you do is you actually add, people usually guess add black. What you actually do is you add the color across from it on the color wheel. So if I wanted to make a yellow that's not as bright, like something that's maybe more realistic, because in life, how often do we see this color? Like things are usually in shadow, or things in nature, usually a little bit duller. I would add a little drop of violet to it. So my goal is to get a color that still looks like yellow, but it's a little duller. So I'll demonstrate that one for you. So I already have some yellow out here, so I'm just going to go ahead and get some violet. So starting with my yellow, I'm going to add a tiny bit of violet to it. See what happens. So we still want this to look yellowish, and to me it is, but it's looking like not a bright yellow. So these colors you might not find as attractive, but to paint, realistically, we need these colors. Okay, so that looks good to me. That looks like it is still yellowish, but it is no longer bright yellow. So that'll be great. So I'll go ahead and paint that here. And while I'm at it, while I have my violet and my yellow out, I might as well go ahead across from it and paint my dull violet. So I'm going to start with violet, and I already have a little yellow on my brush. That might be all that I need, because that already almost turned it brown. We do not want it brown. Let's test it out. That is pretty much brown with just a tiny bit of yellow. So let's see. I need to get a little more violet here. Get a little more. I'll just mix a little bit of that into the violet. All right, that should be good, I think. Subtle difference. It's a little more violet-y. I'm gonna add a little bit more. That turns brown very quickly. There we go. I think that works. Slightly dull. Okay, so then I will paint this here. Okay, so you're going to go around completing your wheel by doing all of the first round, the original hues, always mix these up, the tint of each one, which is the lighter version, and then the intensity, lowering the intensity, which means dulling them. Okay, thanks.